Okay, I've been trying to film this video for the past 2 days, but I've been unable to because builders have been outside hammering away at things and it's been too noisy to put the camera on. But it seems like today they're having a day off, so this might be my only window of opportunity, so I'm going to try and do this really fast. This is my Doctor Who DVD collection signed by the cast. All these are the classic episodes. This isn't all the autographs I own, but it is all the ones I've had signed on the DVD cover. There is other bits and bobs lying around. There's one here, actually. I'll just quickly show you. Christopher Eccleston, his biography, that's signed edition. But I do have other editions of stuff signed, books and some 10x8s, but today I wanted to talk about the DVDs. Hopefully I can remember everyone's names. I've been collecting ever since I started going to conventions, really, and living in the UK, who'd have thought Doctor Who was a UK show? You actually have large windows of opportunity to meet people. Some of these people I've met multiple times. First up is An Unearthly Child. This is the first adventure in the TARDIS. I'm so lucky to have met William Russell. At the time I met him, he was in his early 90s. I think he's in his mid 90s now. But as soon as his name popped up in the guest list of the local convention I attended to meet him, I had to jump on it because I knew it would be probably my last and only chance to ever meet somebody from the beginning of Doctor Who. As we all know, William is long gone. Carole Ann Ford is still doing conventions and little events here and there. Hopefully one day I get to meet her, but Barbara unfortunately passed many years ago, maybe in the 80s. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have met William when I did. And also, when I met him, I didn't actually talk about Doctor Who, which is surprising. I didn't want... When I meet these people, I try and talk about other things they've been in that I've seen. So, for example, Paul McGann, I talked about Hornblower with him, which is an ITV drama that he starred in. But with William, I actually talked about The Great Escape. When I was at his table, you got your table with all your pictures to get signed from the different projects he'd been in, and there's one I noticed, and I'm sure I recognised sort of the style of it and what it was, and I was like, is this The Great Escape? And he was like, yeah, I actually had a scene, or I was an extra in it, and the scene I was in it was cut out. I was like, what? That's really cool. I didn't think or know that he was in that, even if he was an uncredited part. But yeah, if there is deleted scenes of The Great Escape, I'd love to see them because I don't think they've ever been released. And so we spent a lot of time talking about The Great Escape instead of Doctor Who, which is weird when it's probably the best thing he's known for is Doctor Who. Probably spends all the time when he's at conventions talking about Doctor Who, but I think that was a really heartwarming moment to see his eyes light up about me talking about something that wasn't Doctor Who for a change. Because he's probably answered the same questions a million times as most guests have from the show. So that was a nice memory. Next up is Maureen O'Brien in The Rescue. This is our first story. I think this is only a 2-part story. It's not a very memorable story by any means, but it was Vicky or Maureen's first story, so I just got to sign this one. I feel bad for forgetting his name, but it's really hard to read his signature. He was in some episodes of The Crusade, and he wasn't one of the main cast, I don't think, but it was really nice just sitting next to him and him telling the story of when he was working on those episodes that I think he got food poisoning, and just off the set they had a couch just for him to lie down between takes, or I suppose not between takes, but between filming, because he was so ill, and he spent a lot of the episode basically with his head in a bucket, but he got through it, and I think The Crusades was the only one he was in. I'm going to have to look up his name and everything, and I'll leave it underneath. But it was really nice talking to somebody who was a part of the show, but not a big part, that only maybe had a few appearances in the episode here or there. His bit part characters, but he was really nice as well. There's not much more I can say about him. Next up is The Time Meddler. This is signed by Peter Purves in 2015, apparently, according to that. I love this story, The Time Meddler. The first introduction of the Meddler Monk. Also, the first time you meet a Time Lord. I would love the Meddler Monk to return in the future, in the new series. Unlikely, but you never know. One day he might turn up again. Peter Purves again. It looks like Peter Purves. The Gunfighters. What can I say about the Gunfighters? The Gunfighters is an okay story. Also, I've met somebody else from this story. The guy who plays the Thunderbird. One of the Thunderbirds. I can't remember his name, but he's in the story. I've met him before, but I didn't get him to sign this. Next up is The 10th Planet. This is William Hartnell's final story. This is signed by Annika Willis. She was the companion going into the Second Doctor's tenure. She was in the final few episodes of William Hartnell's. The cool thing about meeting her is the event that I met her at, she had a Q&A going on, and she was just freely walking around chatting with everybody, which is really nice. Normally, when you go to an event, the guests are just locked up somewhere until it's time to come out and sign and take pictures, but she was just walking around freely, and it was really nice to see. So it was pretty cool meeting her. This is a great story. I wish that they'd find the fourth part of this instead of having the animation, but what can you do? Next up, this is a really special one, Tomb of the Cybermen. Not only is it one of my favourite Patrick Troughton stories, but this one is signed by Deborah Watling, who's sadly no longer around. So I'm very fortunate to have met Deborah a few years ago. The main thing I remember about meeting her is she told a story about, I think it was Web of Fear, the little dolls of the Yetis. She had them for years after the show. She kept them, but I think she said that she got rid of them and she wished she kept them. But that's what I mainly remember about meeting her. That story about these little figurines of the Yetis that they used in the episode. Next up is The Demons. Who signed this? Richard Franklin, Captain Mike Yates. Yes, this is signed by Richard Franklin. This is a great episode of Jon Pertwee's, set in a little village which you can still visit today. I love to visit that village one day, but this is a great Unit story if you're into Unit and the Earth Adventures of the Third Doctor. I would definitely recommend this one if you've never seen it before. Very memorable story. Next up, this is The Green Death, signed by Katie Manning. This signature I did not pick up by myself. I had to get somebody to go and collect it for me because I was at a music festival the weekend of this event. But regardless, still pretty cool to have. Katie Manning, from everything I've seen, is a really nice woman, great to meet. Hopefully one day I'll have another chance to meet her, but I had to get this signature to go with the collection. Shame I couldn't have picked it up by myself, but oh well. Next up, The Face of Evil, Louise Jameson. This is her first story. Probably is the reason I got to sign this one. Can't remember a lot about the story, apart from that face and the hell of Tom's. I think this comes after The Deadly Assassin, and The Deadly Assassin was the first episode to not have a companion in the show. It was just a doctor by himself, and I think that was because of Tom. I think he wanted to prove himself that he could pull off a show by himself, which Deadly Assassin is a great episode, so if that is the case, he did it. Next up, Sarah Sutton, Keeper of Traken. I think this is Sarah's first episode as well, yeah. I can't remember a lot about this episode. I know the Master regenerates in this one. I'm sure the Master regenerates in this one. This is coming to the end of Tom Baker's 10 years as Doctor. I think it's the second from third last episode, maybe. If that makes sense. Second from third, yeah. Sarah Sutton, pretty cool. Next up is Talons of Weng Chiang. This is signed by Mr. Sin, who's this little guy here. But that's not his real name. I can't remember his real name. Next up is Davros in The Resurrection of the Daleks. This is signed by... I should have wrote the names down before I started filming this, but it's too late now. What's his name? No. Whoever the guy is that plays Davros in this, sign this. I can't find his name at the moment. It's not on the back. Yeah, can't see it. Yeah, so Davros. Next up was Nicola Bryant. I've met Nicola twice. This is the second time I met her, because the first time I met her I got to sign Caves of Androzani, which was actually the first classic story I ever watched or bought. So that story holds a special place in my heart, but there was another chance to meet her again, so I thought get a sign Planet of Fire, because everyone will know the scene I'm talking about, but when you think of Nicola Bryant, tenure in Doctor Who, that scene pops in your head, so I just got that signed again. Got to sign that again. Next up is Turlough. Turlough signed Mordrin Undead. Mark Strickson plays Turlough. Next up was Earthshock. This is signed by Matthew Waterhouse, who plays Adric. This is Adric's last story. I won't spoil what happens, but this sticks in your mind in Doctor Who because of the ending. It also has a great cliffhanger. I think it's in the third episode, the second episode. This is a great Sideman, so I'd definitely recommend picking this one up if you haven't seen this one. Yeah. Next up was Caves of Androzani. Like I said previously, this isn't the actual edition that I got Nicola to sign, but this is the special edition. I got Nicola to sign the original edition, the first DVD I ever got of classic Doctor Who, but this is signed by Peter Davison. Now, I've only ever met Peter Davison once, unlike some of the other Doctors. I've met Colin a few times, I've met Sylvester a few times, I've met Paul a few times. I've never met Tom, yet to meet Tom. Probably is unlikely to meet Tom, actually, which is a shame. But yeah, the only other time I saw Peter was at Doctor Who Radio. No, what was it? Some sort of musical thing, sound where they were playing the soundtracks of the show. They went on some sort of rain tour, but he presented that, and so I did see him at that. But I met him at a little convention, which also had Colin and Sylvester there, and I got a picture of all three of them together, which is pretty cool. This is the first ever Doctor Who DVD I owned. I bought it with the movie, Doctor Who the movie, Paul McGann's only episode, really. Is a buy one get one free, but this is the first one I bought, the first one I ever watched, and it was also rated as the best episode, or ranked as the best episode, so I looked out on that one. The first episode I watched was the best episode of the classic series, voted by the fans. Next up, this is Colin Baker, who signed Vengeance of Varos. Like I said, I've met Colin 3-4 times now. Probably have another chance to meet him again. He's always out there at conventions signing stuff. Lovely to chat to. He's been to my hometown before. One of the first times I met him, he asked where I'd come from, and I told him, "Oh, you won't know the town, there's no point." But he's like, "Oh no, try me." And apparently he went out drinking in the local pubs in my town because he has a friend that lives close by. So my dad may have drank with Colin Baker at some point. I may have passed him in the street in a car. Yeah, it's just crazy to think that he came to my hometown to drink beer with his friends at some point. Next up, Attack of the Cybermen, another Colin signature. Yeah. I can't remember a lot about this episode. The main thing I do remember now, looking at the back of it, is when Colin is shooting up some Cybermen. The Doctor doesn't really use guns. This is the last one I got signed by Brian Blessed. He was doing a life story event thing, Q&A. So I went to that, and just as I was leaving, I was going out. I just thought I'd go around the side on the off chance, and there was a bunch of people running up to his car, and I ran up too, got on the line and got this signed. Total luck on my behalf. Next up, this isn't as nice of a signature as the other two, but this is another Colin Baker one. Probably is one of my favourite, if not my favourite, Colin Baker story. Just because I was Patrick back and Jamie for another adventure. I always thought the Centaurans looked a bit weird in the story, and because of the setting in Spain, it always sticks out, because normally in the classic Who, you're on a planet made of cardboard, or you're in England, and it was nice to see them go out and actually go somewhere else for a change, which is Spain. Next up, Bonnie Langford. From what I remember of meeting Bonnie Langford, I think this is the same day I met Louise Jameson. But Bonnie seemed nice. Got a picture with her as well as Louise. Next up, Remembrance of the Daleks. This is also one of the first stories I ever bought, but not the special edition version, the original version. This is signed by Sophie Aldred and Sylvester McCoy. Sophie I've also met a few times, actually, come to think of it. I think I've met her 2 times or 3 times. Sylvester 3 or 4 times. This is a great Dalek story. If you've not seen this, check this one out. Highly recommend this story. This is an anniversary story, so they tried to link in the first episode by having this little weird moment where it's about to be announced on TV what's coming up, and it just so happens to be the first episode of Doctor Who. And they also visit the school and the scrapyard from the first episode, so this is a nice roundabout story. If they were going to end the show, the classic series, I wish that it ended on this episode instead of Survival and walked out and off into the sunset in this episode, so it would have been more of a full roundabout sort of thing. Going back to the beginning. Lastly, actually no, there's another one after this. Again, Sophie Aldred. This is the final episode of the classic series. Again, like I just said, I wish it was Remembrance of the Daleks instead. That would have been a nice, full turnaround, linking it back to the original, but it's a bit too late now. I can't remember a lot about this one. The Master's in it. There's some cheater people. Yeah. Sophie Aldred signed this one. Next up, although I've met Paul twice, he doesn't really have a lot of adventures to sign unless you include Big Finish, but as well I got Daphne Ashbrook to sign this. Hopefully one day I get to meet what's his name? The guy who plays the Master and also the other 2 companions in the story. Over 2 companions? Over 1 companion? Yeah, the other companion. I can't remember the name of. I should probably also get Sylvester to sign this at some point next time I see him, if I see him. Probably up in this corner, but just to get Sylvester and Paul next to each other. Yeah, that's it. That's my Doctor Who Classic Collection signed DVDs. Have you met any of the people before? I suppose you can't really plan to meet any of them anytime soon, but yeah. What do you think? What's your favourite story? Comment that. What's your favourite classic story?